Are you spending a crazy amount of time trying to figure out how to fundraise, wondering how on earth you're actually going to meet and then convince investors to invest into you? The good news is you can successfully fundraise for your startup without it taking over your entire life, but you have to be willing to do one thing less. So today, I'm going to show you the big mistake I can almost guarantee you're making that's stopping you from actually getting the money you need to build your business and then make your vision a reality. This is going to change your perception on what a fundraise is, how to do it, and how you should work towards it, as well as show you the secrets to fundraising where you should focus on three main key areas to make the prep and the completion of your fundraise faster and easier. So, who's going to be able to harness this fundraising system? Well, firstly, you need to be a tech founder looking to raise with angel or venture capital investors who knows your industry well. And then secondly, oh wait, that's it. Now, the reason this works so well is going to be made really clear in a minute when I start to show you the big mistakes that you're probably making. But first, who the heck are you to tell me how to fundraise for my business? Well, I've been a part of the venture industry for about 11 years now, sitting on every side of the table that you could. And in the last years, I've helped founders raise over 250 million, like Derek, who raised $2 million, Keith raised 1.7, Eldon raised 3 million, which I've learned from being a venture-backed founder raising $16 million, a tier one VC investing over $200 million, and now as an advisor where I've helped over $250 million being raised. And look, I started my first business 11 years ago, and I made every flipping mistake you're currently making along the way and built systems to try and solve them, which made me go from 2 failed startups due to me not being able to raise for them to being able to raise $16 million for my third startup. And the big thing I realized is that to successfully fundraise, you need to make sure you don't make the same mistakes I did and saw time and time again as a VC. Let's start by looking at that big mistake so you can make sure you're working on the correct things that can make you fundraise properly. And that is to try and play a game without understanding the rules. What do I mean by that? So imagine stepping onto a massive chessboard for a high stakes tournament. The problem, you don't actually know the rules. You kind of get the idea, you move pieces, trying to capture the king, but no one has told you which moves are legal, which strategies actually work, and how to think 5 steps ahead. So you start guessing. You move pieces randomly, hoping something works. But here's the catch, you're not playing alone. There are 100 other players in this tournament, and they do know the rules. They understand the strategy, they know exactly which moves to make and when. And here's the worst part, only one of you can win. So who do you think is going to walk away victorious? The person fumbling around, trying to figure it out on the fly, or the one who already understands the game inside and out? And that's exactly what happens in fundraising. Investors don't have unlimited slots. They're meeting 100 founders, and many of them do understand how to play this game, and they can only invest into a few of them. If you're just making random moves, working on things that don't actually matter, you're already at a disadvantage and the chances of you failing to fundraise go up exponentially. So let me show you a big mistake you're making. You don't understand how investors make decisions and why they make decisions. So you get taught to do all these things that don't actually make you have a higher chance of fundraising. And as a result, you focus on the wrong things. All because you don't understand the first principles of why investors will say yes or no to you for each section. And then fundamentally, why you need to do certain things. You don't know the rules of fundraising, so you're always trying to figure out on the fly, and then you're losing out to other founders, not fundraising in the right way, probably not successfully fundraising and doing everything. So why is that a problem? Because you can't be cold emailing thousands of investors, hoping to get someone to reply, or working on your pitch deck, thinking that's all you need to make someone want to invest, not to mention having zero clue on how to conduct yourself or what to say through your fundraising process. You're screwing yourself over and are doomed to fail every fundraise you do because you don't know what you need to work on to successfully fundraise for your startup. And if you fail to fundraise, you'll have to shut down your businesses just like I did. And unfortunately, that is the game most founders are trying to play. And that's why less than 1% actually get funding. So what's the other option? Well, the good news is once you understand how investors make decisions and why, then you can create a system and have the right tactics for your fundraise. For example, Vishal raised 4 million doing exactly this. And he was making sure that he had the system and the accountability to allow him to raise. Or Chris and Hans, who completely changed how they structured their raise to raise over $4.5 million. You can play a fundraise as a chess grandmaster instead of a beginner. So how do you do this? Well, let me show you. With my first two businesses, I was a complete noob. I didn't understand the rules of fundraising. I was just winging it. And because of that, I had no system in place. So my first fundraise, like I said before, I didn't meet a single investor. Literally no one. I tried cold emailing. I must have messaged about 1,000 people, and not a single person even took a meeting with me. I failed before I even got started. For my second business, I learned a little. I made some improvements, and this time I managed to meet about 5 investors. But every single one of them said no in the meeting. And again, I had no system, not just for meeting investors, but actually converting them. And that's the biggest lesson. Fundraising isn't just about getting in front of investors. It's about having a process to turn those meetings into investments. It was only in my third startup that I finally built a system. I took everything I'd learned, the mistakes, the rejections, and I figured out what it actually takes to get investors to say yes. That shift from not understanding the rules to deeply knowing how investors make decisions is what allowed me to go from having to shut down 2 startups to raising 16 million. It was only after I moved into the VC world I truly saw what I was doing that actually made an impact and what I was wasting my time on. Because I was meeting 1,000 founders a year and saw what worked and what didn't, and how these decisions affect me, my team, and all the other VCs I spoke to. And this made me hone that system into how to stop the 3 main problems that founders have with a fundraise. And it didn't just work for me. Look at Daniel, who raised 4.5 million euros doing exactly this. He was having trouble raising before, always had to do bridge rounds or get something through. But once he started to use my system for fundraising, he was able to raise 4.5 million for his robotic startups. And he's been able to build out the ending part of his product. So now you know the big problem and the results it can get you. Let me show you how to do it. And the new way to think about how you fundraise properly and raise the millions of dollars you need to build out your product, hire an amazing team, and make your vision a reality. To do that, I want you to bring you back to the game rules. But this time, imagine you know exactly what to do and how to play it. At this point, you will know what steps to take at each stage and what plays are a waste of time. You know what 20% of the moves make that will cause 80% of the results. And you can fundamentally see what your opposition is doing and how that changes what you do. Imagine if you could have that step-by-step process to win the game instead of hoping for the best. And that's what we're trying to solve with this system. And that's exactly what I built. The Fundraising Unlock program, a 90-day program, which will 1, teach you the rules of fundraising, how to master it. 2, give you a step-by-step system to copy to successfully fundraise for your startup. And 3, gives you the expert support from myself, who sat on every side of the table to keep you on track as you copy the system and get your questions answered and get feedback on all the work you need to do. And that's exactly how I felt founders raise $250 million with people like Tim or John or Sana or Mihalis or Alex or Dominic. So you have a system not only for your fundraise, but for every single fundraise you do in the future, because you know the rules and you have the skills of what it takes to fundraise properly. So let me dive a little bit deeper to show you what's inside and what the 3 main pillars of fundraising are. The first pillar is one I see founders mess up the most. When I was a VC, I saw thousands of founders, but only invested into about 1 to 3 a year. My team invested into around 15 after seeing about 5,000 founders in total. But every single founder we spoke to had similar patterns around who they are, what their business was, and fundamentally how they would change the world. Through the system I've created, we'll make sure you're telling a narrative that makes you one of those 1% of founders an investor sees. Making sure you have a system to be super clear on what makes you great, how to influence investors in the right way through storytelling and in meetings, how to iterate and practice correctly, and lastly, how to communicate to investors directly and indirectly. This was the exact system I used in my third startup to make investors love us, and which I leveraged for our portfolio startups whilst I was at a VC. That allowed them to raise on follow-on investments all the time, and you'll have that system in place for you. But there's one big thing you need to solve before this pillar is worth it. It's all well and good me sitting here showing you how to create a narrative that makes investors love you and converts them and makes them want to invest into you. But what happens if you don't meet any of them like that happened to me? When I started my first business, I didn't meet a single investor. So no matter how great my narrative was, it wasn't. Or how structured I wasn't. I didn't meet someone who could say yes. And through this system, we'll be going through how to create an organized and functioning investor network that gets you 100 plus warm connections by the time you launch, and large amount of conversations in your network where everyone is talking about how great you are. And I've built a system of how you do this over a short and long term, so you can make sure you're getting enough meetings for every single fundraiser you do, not just the one you're doing right now. And lastly, the third pillar, if you're unorganized in how you make sure you do your narrative and network in the right way, they won't be working in unison. And that's exactly what Vishal learned from this system. He felt disjointed in his previous raises, but by using the system, he had a process of discipline to complete the necessary steps that allowed him to raise $4 million. And through having a better process, you can prepare your network and narrative at the correct times, launch a round in the right manner to make a competitive round, and be organized as you go, through a round to make sure you're doing everything in your power to make sure investors want to invest into you. All of this whilst having expert guidance from me, answering your questions and giving feedback to whatever you're confused about when it comes to fundraising. Not only that, you'll join a group of highly driven founders going through the same problems as you, sharing wins together, and you get to experience what it's like to be an investor, only making it even faster for you to understand the rules and the tactics to make you fundraise better. You'll get access to 4 live group sessions with a maximum of 4 to 5 founders. We want to keep them really small so that you get as much access as possible. Then weekly Q&As for 90 days to answer any extra questions you have after the main workshops are done. So you have not just understood the rules of the game, but you'll have an exact step-by-step process for every fundraise you ever do. So you can ignore the things that don't matter, work on the things that do, have a background from someone who's sat on every side of the table and actually fundraise for your startup. And because you get lifetime access to all of this content and systems and future updates, you can take this wherever you like. So if you're not ready for it yet, no problem. Just do it when you are or come back to it in future raises, which means you don't have to wait years trying to figure out how to do this all on your own. Or even worse, be like me and having to shut down my first 2 businesses because I couldn't fundraise. And if you follow this system for 1 to 3 months, you will give yourself the highest chance of success in fundraising. With over 80% of the founders I work with who can successfully fundraise, compared to the less than 1% normally. Now, I'm not going to deny, right? In the beginning, it's going to be a lot of upfront work to do. But once you understand the rules of fundraising, then you understand the things you actually need to work on. You're going to realize all of the things you missed out on and all of the things that actually move the needle for you. And without it, you would have most likely not fundraised. And for those of you who do want to continue with my support, then you can upgrade to my membership and get direct feedback and support from someone who's sat on every side of the table and give you the rules you need to be successful. So if you're interested or want to chat, click the link below.